Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you are listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you're 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 listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast. Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Mr. Bill Podcast, episode number 7. I'm doing a bunch of shows. If you want to come and see me play all of my new music, I'm doing Atlanta on the 26th of October. I am doing Bangalore on the 8th or 9th of November, and Delhi, I think, on one of those days. I'm doing some India stuff. 1st of November, or maybe the 2nd of November, I'm doing Taipei, Taiwan.
3rd and 4th of November is your workshop in Taipei.
There we go. And then I'm doing Melbourne, Australia on the 15th of November. I am doing Bohemian Beat Freaks on the 23rd of November, which is up near Brisbane in Australia. Sydney on the 30th of November. Then in December, I've got San Francisco on the 12th of December. 13th of December is Nevada City. 14th of December is Los Angeles. 18th of December is Denver, Colorado. 19th of December is Santa Fe, New Mexico. 20th of December is not a thing. 21st of December is Columbus, Ohio. 11th of January is Philadelphia. For all tickets and more information, go to mrbillstunes.com/tour. All right.
That is if I've added in all the dates to your website.
There you go. Yeah. So, today I'm speaking with Anand Harsh, who is actually my manager. And I thought this would be an interesting conversation because a lot of people are constantly asking me about like management stuff, and just like I think probably I get like 2 messages a week of people just being like, when should I get a manager, or like what does a manager do, or all of that kind of stuff, or people talking about I get so many messages of people being like, how do I get booked, and I'm like, oh cool, well let me check.
Well, I see a lot of those messages that come to you, so I know that you're being inundated with this stuff, and you did this to yourself because you told people how to make the music, so now they're assuming they can come to you and get an answer as to how to take other aspects of their career to the next level.
Right, yeah, I kind of like demystified a bunch of shit in music, so people are now kind of like, well, how do I do all these other things that have mystery around them?
Yeah, you have to define some sort of like bright line area around your expertise and say, I can help you with this, I can't help you with this. Unless honestly, maybe it would make sense for you to do a tutorial. It's like, I'm going to walk away from Ableton for this tutorial. I'm going to tell you about booking a show, the steps to that, finding an agent, finding a manager. Maybe that would be an interesting twist to your tutorial series.
Well, I think that's what this podcast can be.
That makes sense. Yeah,
I definitely think it's like just because I feel like the tutorials is like always good to just have those be like, related to how to do tricks in Ableton, like how to do specific little weird things that I've found, like little hacks and stuff. And then I think live streaming is just a good look into, me, how I am in the studio, like on an actual day-to-day basis. And then, the big premium content on my website is good for showing people, like breaking down my whole process in a larger detail. But I think the podcast is really good for everything else. It's good for like breaking down just like all the extra exterior thoughts that you might have in the music industry and talking to other artists about their experience, and then obviously talking to people like you, like managers and stuff like that.
I think really the greatest thing that this podcast could do is really make a very solitary profession feel not so lonely. All these people have their laptops in an airport with their Starbucks cup of coffee. They have 3-4 gigs that week, and they're by themselves. And if they've got a tour manager, they've already talked about everything they can talk about. They've exhausted all list of possible things, and it feels very lonely, and you feel like you're going through it by yourself without a roadmap or anything. And the extracurricular stuff from actually making the music, mixing the music, suddenly there's this community of people that are sharing their frustrations, their fears. I guess that's what EDM Twitter is for the most part, but right. This is a more long form approach to that. Instead of 280 characters, you get, somebody talking about mental health and being able to stay positive, get past writer's block, all of that from people that are their colleagues and stuff that people frankly don't talk about very much.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I've kind of heard a lot of responses to this podcast so far being sort of in that realm, you know, people being like, oh man, that's super interesting here. And you talk about all these things, which is good. I really like it. I also like that. So the way that when I started this podcast, I recorded like shitloads, well, not shitloads, like 6 episodes, like really quickly.
Right.
And then they were all sort of backlogged and coming out like over the last few weeks. And now we're like back to, you know, square one.
Real time.
Real time now, which is good because it means at the start of all the podcasts, I can push my dates and be like, hey, come to my fucking show.
There's that. But also now you can incorporate the reaction because podcasting is such an intimate medium. You're able to immediately react to people listening to these deep conversations. People are eavesdropping on these conversations they wouldn't be able to hear between an artist like yourself and someone else of your ilk who are going through the same things, talking about the same gear and technology and all of that, but also talking about the nuts and bolts of touring and being a musician. And that creates intimacy, which is why podcasting is such a booming form of communication, because other media don't have this sort of intimacy, and because people don't listen to terrestrial radio anymore and they don't have their favorite DJ that's with them on their drive time commute to work, they lose that intimacy in their life. And so you are their friend in their ears once a week, and you are imparting this knowledge, and you can respond immediately to their feedback, and that becomes part of the show as well.
Yeah, totally, which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to growing this podcast and all that stuff. But anyway, speaking of touring, just before we get too far into the thing, we could probably describe what you do. So you're a manager for a bunch of artists. You run an agency called Re-Evolution. So you're also an agent.
Right.
And then what else do you do apart from that? You run the Untz Festival, or you do all the talent buying for the Untz Festival?
I assist in talent buying with our benevolent overlord, Avi Gallant, who started it and started the Untz 10 years ago as a news and music and events website. It was ostensibly supposed to be the jam base for electronic music, and it still is. It still functions as a great database for mainstream and underground electronic events going on all over the country. And, you know, I was brought on, I studied journalism in undergrad and grad school, and that's how I got involved in that. So I came in ostensibly as a journalist, and so, you know, I was brought in as an intern, but nobody was answering my email, so I just called myself editor-in-chief of the Untz, and suddenly people started, responding to my emails, and then, you know, I was curating the news and all that, but just because of where my tastes are and where my preferences lie, we started focusing really heavily on underground bass music. At first we were writing about Tiesto tour dates and fucking Avicii this and other mainstream acts, but like that wasn't what was interesting to us. We focused a lot on the live-tronica stuff because all the people at the Untz came from the jam band world. Like I knew nothing about electronic music before 10 years ago. I was like into Fish and String Cheese and metal, and like West African music was basically what I was addicted to, like right around 2008, 2009 when I got brought on at the Untz. So it was like, what did I learn coming into this? Like what was really hitting at the time was basically dubstep coming to America. And so that's where the focus of the Untz started shifting. And so we really like made ourselves a niche publication for very underground stuff. And so that is where my expertise is now. And, I'm an agent and a manager, but like in a very specific corner of the music industry. I suppose I should diversify, but what's the fun in that?
Yeah, I think you've got to do what you find interesting, not what you necessarily find monetarily gainful or, socially gainful or whatever. I mean, like if you enjoy the stuff that you work with, I think that's more important than making a lot of money, right?
Certainly. And I'm comfortable.
I think it's a balance. Like I think, like you need to find something that's both something you enjoy and something everybody else enjoys and something you can make money from. And
right.
Like if you can balance those three things, that's like probably the ideal spot to be.
Right. I mean, that's difficult because, yes, ostensibly I'm supposed to make money, but if I was representing some like bar band that was just super successful, or like a tribute band, which is a lot of what you see now, which is crazy. In like Live Nation and AEG rooms is a lot of tribute acts.
Wow.
Like What is it?
Maybe I should do an Aphex Twin cover project.
The legalities around it are so dicey and weird, but there's like there's Beatles tribute bands that play Red Rocks and shit, which is
That's fucking weird.
unbelievable. And like Pink Floyd type tribute acts that play Red Rocks. It boggles my mind.
I mean,
but like,
if they like maybe very, very close to the real deal though, then like potentially it could be cool to see that, I suppose.
yeah, there might be a tribute act. I'm talking on my ass right now. I think it's called like 1964 or something. That's just like, this is the first like Ed Sullivan experience that American audiences would have with the Beatles. And so they're like representing that to a new generation of Beatles fans. And I don't actually know how that stuff works. Maybe they're kicking back money to the estates of the Beatles, or, you know, there has to be some sort of way of getting around this. And
Isn't
it
there
must
a
just
thing,
be paying them.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
It's not parody.
No, it's obviously money related.
Yeah.
But like, I think isn't there something where you, like, once a track is like 50 years old or something, it goes into some like licensing bin that's not
Right.
Like,
I thought the number was 99 years old, which is why Happy Birthday like suddenly is becoming to public domain, and you can hear Happy Birthday in
is that song only
movies
100
now.
years old?
Yeah, Marion and Patty Hill, I want to say. Two like aristocratic spinsters. Again, I'm talking out my ass, but they own the Happy Birthday song. That's why in movies from the 80s and stuff, there would always have to be some workaround whenever there's a birthday scene with like a different song or something. But now that it's in the public domain, you can hear Happy Birthday in like movies and TV shows.
Andrew Huang has this like video where he takes the Happy Birthday melody and then he takes every note from the Happy Birthday melody and like either shifts the notes like one by one up or down by like one octave. So instead of being like dun 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 dun, it goes dun dun, dun dun, like all the notes are like way high or way low, but they are the same notes. They're just like, you know, divisions or multiplications of two.
What does it make you feel?
You don't hear the melody anymore at all. It like completely goes away.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's got something to do with the distance between the notes that like makes your brain.
It's never
be
more than like a third, right?
Yeah,
like a second
but
or a
even
third, the distance between the notes.
Yeah, but even if like say note number 2 is like a C sharp or something, if you make it like instead of being a C sharp 1, a C sharp 2 or 3, and then the next note say it's supposed to be a C, and instead of making that a C, you make it like a C negative 1 or something, and you do that to every note in the melody, it becomes completely unrecognizable, even though it's all the same notes in the same order. It's like your brain needs them to be close to like figure it out.
I mean, there's got to be a reason why Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and all of these latch themselves onto our brains, because there's some sort of proximity in notes or some sort of like it doesn't challenge you too hard, especially as people's understanding of music was extremely primitive for tens of thousands of years. Like melody or any of that was very, very basic for the longest time. If you're talking about Gregorian chants or Tuvan throat singing or whatever, like there was very little variation, and now we're listening to all sorts of types of different music with different styles and rhythmic patterns, and like now we're introducing synthetic elements into it beyond the like acoustic. So our brains are suddenly absolutely shattered with all this like influx of information, which is probably why very simple melodies still like become huge chart topping hits. Like what is that Martin Garrix song, Animals?
Oh, Animals, yeah. I think it was Yeti. He was telling me he thinks the reason that like 4/4 music, or you know multiples of 2, like, you know 1 2 1 2 or 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. The reason why that is so like nice sounding to us and feels like it comes around in a nice way rather than odd time signatures like 5 or 7 is because of walking.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
And like
I wonder if we all had 3 legs, if we'd all be into like triplet music or something like that.
are there any animals with 3 legs?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
I guess we're like,
I wonder if you got a spider and ripped one of its legs off, if it would preference like Dream Theater 7/8 songs.
it'd be really into Broken Social Scene.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh yeah, but what I was saying is if I had to represent a money grab tribute act, I think I would not want to work as hard. I would lose interest. It would feel like a job. And it doesn't now, because I'm helping my friends who make incredible music advance their careers.
Right. So it feels like fulfilling for you to do.
Look, I mean, how many people who are in the butt end of the music industry like myself, the business, no fun, not on stage with fucking cryo cannons, shooting confetti on people and like dancing around. How many people who are in my part of the music industry are failed musicians? Like,
True.
you know, we wanted to be up there. I got horrible stage fright every time I had a piano recital. And so, like, you know, you still want to be a part of the scene. You want to live vicariously through your clients. And when they make music that makes you feel something, you are absolutely driven. You are driven to the point of madness. Like, why doesn't everyone else on the planet love this artist as much as I do?
Right. So
And like when you like something so specific, like a Mr. Bill, for instance, it's like you want to shake people and be like, you don't get it. You don't get it. You don't get it. Because I was a fan first of yours before we had a business relationship. I was a super fan.
Yeah.
And that's what made me like basically stalk you in the business world and try and, you know, form a business partnership with you, because I'm such a convert. I am such a believer that I think it'd be easy. It's not like working. It's like as easy as turning on a light switch to get people to know who you are and love your music, because I do so much.
Right. That's a good thing to talk about, actually, is like the way that our business partnership started, I guess, and perhaps like how other people could use that information to figure out their own stuff. So I guess like from my perspective, I moved to America in 2014 when I was being managed by Josh Hernandez, who at the time was managing Savant. Mm-hmm. And he got me like my initial visa to live in America. And I was working obviously with Alex Hutchinson at the time too, who at the time I think we were with AM Only.
Before Surefire?
Yeah, before Surefire we were with AM Only, which is like Skrillex's agency and stuff like that, which I think now has merged with Paradigm, right?
I want to say so, yeah.
Yeah. So I was working with those guys, which is kind of like big dick energy in the EDM world, which didn't really suit my vibe at all. Yet I was somehow involved that way. And then I think it was like, well, it wasn't that long after I moved here. It was like I moved here so I started getting managed by him in 2014, got my visa and moved here in 2015. I think I was done with him he left me, actually. I didn't leave him as a manager. He was just like, oh, you're not doing so well. And
because Savant was exploding at this point.
I think Savant was exploding, so it was sort of all hands on deck for Savant. But also he was just kind of, I think I was just frustrating him with like my amount of like demands, and like I wasn't even that demanding, you know. I was just being like, hey, can you like check in for flights and shit and like just basic stuff. And he did a great job. I'd love to have him on this podcast at some point as well. Josh is a really interesting dude.
Sure, yeah.
But at some point he was just like, oh, maybe we should just like not do this. And I was like, all right, sure. And then for a while it was my girlfriend at the time managing me, Samantha. And she didn't do a great job. And I was kind of advancing a lot of my own shows for like a year.
Yeah.
And then I suppose like that's when, actually I think the first time we hung out was because you were doing your own podcast, the Untz Podcast.
The second sort of iteration of some sort of streaming thing. I come from media. I come from like radio.
Right.
And so I've always been obsessed with talking to people in this format, which like I'm obsessed with podcasts too.
Yeah.
And it's such an intimate like experience. And so I've been trying to do this. Like I tried my own podcast 10 fucking years ago now. And I think I was maybe ahead of the curve in podcasts in a lot of ways, but also like I didn't have the star power behind it. Like you're someone who people respect and come to from music.
I think if you did the Anand's podcast again now, it would probably go well. I think you'd like, it's a lot of effort, but I think one of the things that you did that made it not work was maybe like made it too difficult on yourself. Like you made it have to be streamed with video and like all that kind of stuff.
No, that was the live Facebook. Wait, what the fuck was I doing at that point?
It was still the Anand's podcast, I think. I remember you had me on there, and then like a week or two later you had Joshua on there.
Oh yeah, that was with Brian. That was with Mux Mool. That was our late lunch. That was our Facebook streaming, like almost like a talk show type thing.
Yeah.
The Untz podcast I did was like an actual podcast, streaming and downloadable and all that. You know, with the RSS, you know, feed and you know, showing up in people's podcatchers and all that. But this was 2010, 2011, and people in this scene were not listening to podcasts, or if they were, it was like as a mix. Basically, they were downloading mixes, and nobody was really talking or interviewing these people. I did 150 episodes between 2010 and 2012 or 13 when I eventually
I'm on like
out on
episode 7 right now.
It
This is
seems
episode
like a
7.
lot, but like, yeah, I interviewed everyone from, I did the Tiestos and the Aviciis and the Marcus Schultzes and all that.
You interviewed Tiesto?
Yeah, but they were all by phone, or like 90% of them were by phone.
Yeah, say fuck that.
So you need audio quality. That's why podcast fans hate live episodes, because there's so much degradation in audio quality.
Yeah, plus I think like there's degradation in the quality of the conversation too if you do them over the phone. I feel like sitting in a room with someone like we are now is just, you get a completely different conversation to whether or not, like if you're sitting, just like in a room by yourself talking to someone over Skype or something.
Right.
And like then the call keeps dropping and interrupting like points you're trying to make.
Right.
Or, somebody will be like making a point, they'll like finish their point and you'll be like, oh, sorry, that like last minute was just glitching out or something.
Yeah, no, it was difficult. But I got a lot out of it, and I had a ton of interview experience coming from radio, but like coming into a scene where not a lot of people were used to having long form interviews like this, where they had the opportunity to really explain themselves. It produced a lot of cool insights. Like I got Pretty Lights to talk about his process when he had all the members of like Lettuce and what became his Pretty Lights live band in for Color Map of the Sun. And I was like, you have these incredible artists in, and they want to, they're really excited to be with each other. I bet it was awesome to just like listen to them jam. And he was like, no, it wasn't. They'd be jamming and I'd come into the room and I'd be like, are you done? All right, now I want you to do it this way. And he doesn't know music theory, so he'd be like, give me a drum beat that's like this, Adam. And Adam would play, a certain drum beat. He's like, okay, like give me a little slop on it, make it a little more syncopated. Then, all right, give me some dirty guitar. Give me, yeah, like that, but like change a little. So it wasn't like he had these incredible musicians in there to like jam and he'd take breaks from them. He was constructing these breaks that he would then sample that became the album. So in a regular interview, you wouldn't get that out of him, and you wouldn't get that sort of anecdote like that. But with this long form medium, you really get people in their element talking about their music in a way that they can't when they're on stage and all you're hearing from them is 1, 2, 3, let me see your hands.
Right, yeah, totally.
DJs don't get to necessarily talk about their craft in any sort of medium like this, except for short little Q&As that show up in music blogs. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I agree. So to continue on the story of my perspective about how you became my manager, I think after the time that we did the Untz podcast, we went and got ramen in Denver. And I think that was the day that we were like, all right, let's do the management thing.
Yeah. And I had known that your previous management situation was not working, or was,
I mean, it was just like Savant was just taking all of this dude's resources, which he kind of needed because he's, autistic or Asperger's or whatever.
Sure.
So he kind of needs that extra help to like, get on a plane. Like, so Josh was not only his manager, he was also his full-time tour manager.
Right.
And pretty much his full-time life setup.
Yeah.
He would like kind of get his groceries for him and all that stuff. So it was just like, he did not have the capacity, I feel like, to manage anybody else, and was trying to.
Right.
And then I think he was just like getting maybe too stressed. I don't know. Whatever ended up happening. He was a fine manager. It's just I think Savant was taking up more of his time and resources, and it made sense because Savant at the time was making shitloads of money. So.
Right. Yeah.
So he was paying him to take up his time.
Exactly. Are you in touch with him at all, or?
We've DM'd a few times on Twitter, and I've hung out with Alex like maybe 3 times or something. He's a nice guy. He actually doesn't seem that autistic to me every time I talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah, he seems like definitely a lot less autistic than I think a lot of people think he is.
Is he still producing at the same clip that he was?
I believe maybe.
He's extraordinarily prolific, especially at that time.
Yeah, for sure. He's a fucking amazing producer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think he is still producing a lot, but I think it's for maybe like games and film and like maybe
sense.
Building a big library for like sync stuff and to get royalties going, and I don't know, whatever he's doing. I think he just put a release out too.
Okay.
I haven't really been following him that much.
I feel like he was making such a specific sound that had such a narrow window of time, like that complextro sound.
But also it was like very chiptuney and like video gamey and stuff.
Yeah.
And also like I think he was kind of mixing that sort of Monster Cat complextro sound with the video gamey stuff with like the new Skrillexy shit that was coming in at the time, and it just all was hitting really nicely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about this particular industry is that trends like happen and then burn out so quickly that it's impossible to be, very identified with a specific style too closely. Otherwise, once that's gone, like Moombahton, like came and was gone immediately.
Right, but Dillon Francis stuck around.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess if you're like super iconic in some certain way, but I think if you went to a Dillon Francis show, there's still a lot of different elements finding their way in there. But yeah, I guess, yeah.
I have a funny story about Dillon Francis.
I would love to hear it.
Apparently, one day he played Still Dream Festival, and he was in a cabin, and some guy in the cabin had a DMT pen, and he gave it to Dillon Francis and was like, yeah, hit this. And Dillon like hit it and like fully like blasted off on DMT.
Sure.
And then the guy was like, do you want to do it again? And he was like, you do this shit again? I won't say the name of the guy who gave him the pen, but it's somebody I don't think is lying.
No, that's I've done it enough to where, I think I've seen everything I need to see.
On DMT?
Yeah. I'm talking like a handful of times now, and this is probably spread over 2 or 3 years, maybe 10 years back. And like, there are people who say that they see new things and learn new things about themselves. Like, I've experienced so much ego death. I experience ego death upon waking up in the morning. Like,
right.
That's where I'm at with my self-awareness. So like, I think that I'm very much like, I'm not in danger of becoming a narcissist or anything like that, or becoming too much about self, because my ego is done dead at this point.
Right. I don't think that's the goal for me doing DMT, at least. I think I honestly mostly do it recreationally, as much as people say it's like some medicinal, like, thing, which I mean, sure it is, like, especially if you're taking it on the level of like ayahuasca or something.
Sure. If you're doing it properly in some sort of ceremony with people whose like entire societies are built around this as a sacrament, then like, sure, you're probably seeing it and doing it responsibly and doing it in such a way that you are learning things. But like blasting off in someone's basement, or goddamn, I don't know how people do it at live shows. That is beyond me.
Oh, dude, when I was playing at Cervantes the other day with Chris, I could smell so much fucking DMT during my set, and I was playing like huge dubstep bangers. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I lose complete connection with the outside world. So it doesn't matter if I was in a library or at like a crazy electronic show, because like I'm not hearing anything anymore. I'm not seeing anything that's around me anymore. I'm literally on another planet. Like,
well, it depends how much you do. Like I feel like a lot of people think about DMT as like an all the way on or all the way off kind of thing. It's like I'm either here in this world or I'm completely blasted off in another world.
Sure.
But for me, it's very much like I can step it up to very different levels. Like I can have just enough that I get a little bit sweaty and everything's a little wobbly, and I just feel like kind of grounded as fucking like a little high. Or I can like do a little bit more than that, and if I close my eyes I start to see a lot of shit. Or I can do even more than that, and then that's when I'm like in another world. And I look at it the same way as alcohol. It's like I can have one beer,
sure,
and I can be like a little bit buzzed and like, social. Or I can have 20 beers, be completely antisocial, unable to have a conversation with anybody, spewing everywhere, and
sure,
completely blacked out, drunk, and like that whole chunk of memory is deleted from my brain the next day.
I was doing it at the time when, the research chemicals boom, where we were just getting packets of strange substances off the internet from Arizona. So like,
right.
Who knows what the measurement of the shit was, or like what we're even doing.
Plus,
or
it probably
what
also
analog it was.
Yeah.
So it was definitely on or off for me anytime that I did it.
Yeah. Well, also these days DMT comes quite often in the form of a vape pen.
Sure.
Which makes it super easy to like level it up or whatnot. I feel like if you do it in the powder sense, where you do it through like a
that's
piece or whatever, it's very much more. It's way more difficult to level it up that way. It's more of an on-off kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you ever get it in a vape pen, that to me is like the best way to do it, because that's where you can kind of very carefully gauge your dosage, and you can kind of like dose yourself up slowly depending on like how high you want to get.
The thing with me and psychedelics is at this point, because of all the names and dates and things I have to keep track of in my head, my anxiety goes through the roof with even the slightest like thought of I would be physically unable to get on a phone call right now if somebody needed me in this situation. It's like, our ticket count is so-and-so at this venue tonight. Who's all on the guest list? Where is our runner? Like, what's our hotel? Like, any of that stuff, any of that information, I really feel like it has to be at my fingertips at any one time. And so...
But it kind of is if you have all your advances sweet, right?
Certainly, yeah. But you know this more than anyone else. You could be completely prepared for a show and something comes up and there's just some sort of missed link in communication or some promoters trying to pull a fast one of your artists, and you have to jump into action, you know, at 3 a.m. when they're trying to settle up. And you know, if you're incapacitated in any way, that's almost impossible.
Here's the trick. Never have to settle up. Just always get the money wired.
No. Exactly. But, you know, there's always circumstances that arise or somebody gets stranded or a travel situation if a flight's delayed or something like that.
That one's tough. And the thing that makes that tough on the artist end of things is like, for instance, if I'm at an airport and my flight gets fucked, it's just really difficult to like whip my laptop out, connect to a internet network and like sort it all out there. If the internet's kind of shit, especially if a lot of people are like trying to do the same thing, it really like fucks the network up.
Right.
And the internet speed and just comfortability of like searching things and figuring stuff out in an airport whilst you're in the midst of that problem is sort of difficult, which is generally why I would call you in that issue, because I'm just like, hey, you're in a comfortable spot with a computer and decent internet. How about you look at this?
Exactly. And I'm also a bit of a travel nerd, and you know, I don't like when situations go wrong, but I like to know how many airports there are in a city or what airlines fly in and out of the city or how to use the specific rules that govern airlines where they have to communicate with one another and help you out if they've canceled a flight and put you on another airline, the specific little tricks of the trade that that you can get out of those situations. It's kind of like a game or a challenge for me. So that's kind of fun. I love looking at, like, it does sound nerdy, but like I do love like just searching various flight paths for shows that I'm not even on, just to like know how difficult it would be to get from Fayetteville, Arkansas to you know, Norfolk, Virginia.
Right.
It's an interesting thing for me to determine which airlines are doing it, where the average cost is. It's funny to look at a flight where you could get from Bangor, Maine to Cleveland for the same cost that it would take you to get from Bangor to Scotland. And it's like, what is the reasoning for that? Why is this particular route not covered by this? Like, what is the...
Do you always search flights with cookies disabled and stuff like that?
I mix it up.
Okay, interesting.
I mix it up to see what's going on, because I have tricked myself into thinking that I've increased the price of flights by searching it too much.
Really?
Yeah. Like, if a lot of people are searching a specific route, that means it's in demand, right?
Right.
And so if a lot of people want that flight, then the cost of the flight can go up.
Yeah.
But if it's a unpopular route that nobody is searching, maybe the airline reduces it or doesn't charge as much because it's you know, it's not getting as much action. So yeah. I've convinced myself of a lot of things in searching for flights.
Right. I've noticed this is like a thing that I've noticed a lot more in the last like 12 months, is that with flights, it's so common now for the flight, like one flight to sort of go to two places on the one trip kind of.
Sure.
To make it so that it's not so that the plane isn't empty.
Right.
You know, like from Denver, there'll be a flight that goes from like Denver to San Francisco to San Jose or some shit like that.
Sure.
Or if there is an airport there, or just an example. Yeah. Like, for instance, my flight on the way here stopped through Nashville. It went from Minneapolis to Nashville to DC.
Southwest does that a lot.
Yeah. And I've actually never been on one where I've had to stop somewhere and then go somewhere else until yesterday.
It's fun.
But quite often I'll be on a flight and I'll see that it's like going to another place. And when I'm getting off the plane, they'll be saying like, oh, stay in your seats if you're heading to blah, 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 whatever. Yeah.
Then you really get to see how little they clean the plane in between flights.
Oh, yeah. Not a lot. Yeah. They literally just go through every aisle and just sort of like...
Just make sure there's not like a used condom or like somebody is obviously thrown up somewhere.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, it's very light cleaning. So people that walk around in bare feet on a flight, like, God bless you, you've got some super resistance to germs or something. Because like, yeah, Planes are absolutely filthy. I love airports. I love flights. Like
Wait, really?
looking at
You
flights.
like airports and
I
flights?
love airports
What?
because everything you need is at your fingertips. If you've lost your headphones, there's like a headphone vending machine. There's books. There's all the sorts of different kinds of shitty food that I could ever want because I sometimes in the mood for shitty food. But I hate the actual flying part of it.
Just because of the dirtiness of the plane?
There's that. There's also like I can't sleep on a flight.
Yeah.
I'm always getting sick.
Me
from,
too,
like,
man. I
flying
get
because
sick, like,
they're
all
just
the time.
tubes of disgustingness.
Yeah. They're a tube of farts.
Yep, exactly. Tube of farts, 35,000 feet in the air.
Yeah. I also don't think the body should like go that high.
Probably not. I mean, NASA's tested it out for a while, and I suppose if you're flying enough, maybe you're like losing your muscle mass or something because you're under less gravitational force. Maybe it's insignificant if you're still within the atmosphere, but
Yeah. Tommy from Broken Note told me that he thinks every flight you go onto is the same as exposing yourself to like 20 x-rays worth of radiation.
also there's security. There's that.
Oh yeah, the millimeter wave scanner, which as far as Bill Burr is concerned, they're just like slowly cooking everybody.
Good. That's fine. I'm fine if everyone's getting cooked if I don't get blown out of the sky.
It's such a like bullshit system though. Like as far as I know, the TSA is like totally just security theater, right?
Underfunded.
I don't think I don't think it's underfunded, or maybe it is, but like I definitely think that
there's not that much training going into it. It's definitely to make us feel safer.
Yeah, exactly. There's like no actual like evidence that they've stopped any.
How long ago
attacks.
do you think the shoe bomber was?
It's like what, recent, right?
No, I think it couldn't be fewer than 10 years ago.
Right.
Couldn't be. And we're still taking off our shoes.
Wait,
at the
but there was
airport.
yeah, but also there was that other bomber recently that flew from somewhere to like Brussels or something, right? And then blew something up. Or
I can't remember, but I mean, those Samsung phones that were exploding are probably just as dangerous as that shoe bomb would have been.
I feel like I watched something on YouTube of some guy who like wore some glasses that were made out of a specific type of metal. And then he like got on the plane and like shaved the edge of the glasses down, and it was like some material that he could have just made a bomb on a plane with. And he was like, I had just got through security with like all like, he's like, oh, they took my shampoo and stuff, but like I've still got all the stuff I need to make a bomb.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, if you really got to take a plane out of the sky that bad, they're going to figure out a way to do it. And I think terrorists are probably content to not do that anymore.
I mean, like it doesn't even incite that much terror. At least in me.
I think what it does is it makes governments like clamp down on their own citizens and like create enough strife between the oppressed and the oppressors so that you create enough tension in these countries to begin with. And so you lead to the authoritarian rise of dictators and right-wing thinking. So you've accomplished your goals by just doing a few things. They've already planted the seeds. I don't think there have been major terrorist attacks in a while. There's certainly individual shootings and stuff in this country, but it's not like really affecting geopolitics except for what has already been in motion. And now, we see the rise of authoritarianism because 20 years ago we were like safety first, safety above all else. Yeah. And so I guess maybe the damage is done. So you don't need to terrorize anymore.
Right. So you're a brown Indian man, and you live in Charlottesville, Virginia. You were there during the Nazi riots, right?
Yeah, I was at a bluegrass festival with my in-laws. We were going there in the morning, and we were supposed to go, counter protest in the afternoon. But I everything started well before these things were scheduled to start, and so I was like on Twitter basically during this bluegrass festival, like waiting to leave and like go join everyone downtown. I was like, oh shit, they've already killed someone. I guess we're not going there. And yeah, that city was entirely shut down by it was under martial law by 5-6 o'clock that evening. And there were rows of like SWAT teams with guns and stuff just patrolling the city. Yeah. But, we say that it was, rednecks from North Carolina for the most part, or other parts of the country that came in, and it wasn't the actual people of Charlottesville. But it's UVA, which is a very elite university and breeds a sort of bow tie racism that's, ruled that place since the days of Jefferson. Like Thomas Jefferson created University of Virginia. So like that sort of level of benevolent racism has always been there. It's just the overt stuff made a big splash because of the Confederate statue and the unfortunate death of a citizen of our city. But yeah, it's always bubbling under the surface.
Right. And in Charlottesville or like in the TSA or anything, do you ever notice like racial profiling stuff happening to you personally?
Oh, sure. My wife is white, and whenever we're flying anywhere together, we sail on through. But, when I go solo, as it were, I always get the extra pull aside, swab my fingers for gunpowder residue or whatever they're checking for, bomb making residue.
Like almost every time?
Yeah, let's say 85, 90% of the time.
It's fucking crazy. I get it like maybe 10% of the time, if that. Maybe like even 5% of the time.
If I can even game the system by like how the length of my beard is. Like
Jesus.
it's that.
Like if you have a bigger beard, they'll like pull you over.
Yeah,
more.
oh yeah. It's you could set your watch by it, which is part of the whole security theater thing anyway. Like if other passengers see the brown guy get pulled over and get extra attention and he's let free,
they'll just feel
they're like,
good.
oh, I feel great. I was worried about that one guy, but they checked him out, so I feel good. So it's not so much that they're profiling me for the sake of making sure I'm good. They're showing everybody around that, hey, we got our eye on this guy too. He's fine. He's passed the test.
That's so fucked.
But what I was trying to say about air travel is I was talking about this with my therapist yesterday because all I talk about is my job. Because
You have a therapist?
I do. I just started therapy a couple weeks back.
Nice.
And
did you have like any issues that sort of made you want to start going there?
just stress and workload and all that.
Sure. So you're just going there to sort of process that with like a...
Yeah, and he's an anxiety specialist, but like basically all I did was explain every hour of every day, like what I'm going through and what things I had on my mind and what things I had to do. So basically it was just like reading my fucking planner aloud to him. So I think I might be done with him.
Straight from GCal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then I've got this show, and then there's a show in Boulder, and there's one in Asheville, and it's
right.
I didn't find as much use in it as I would like to, but I was telling him like I can see the effects of climate change more acutely than most people because I can keep track in my spreadsheets the number of delays and cancellation in air travel just due to inclement weather. And so the rise of that over the years, like I'm sure, the National Weather Service is tracking this stuff too, but like I can actually see that there have been an increase in cancellations of flights and delays
Due to weather.
That's
fucking crazy, actually. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah. So you actually, every time there's like a delay or a cancellation, you mark it in your calendar?
Sure, because I want to make sure that people get to shows on time. I got to make sure that a lot of my clients live on the West Coast, right? And a lot of the base scene is concentrated in different pockets around the United States. So Colorado is obviously a big hub. Chicago.
That's also definitely Colorado and Chicago are places of weird weather too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As is another big base area, which is the Southeast.
Right.
Like the number of like hurricanes that come tearing up the mid-Atlantic.
Did you hear about Trump's solution to the hurricane?
Shoot them up with nuclear weapons.
Nuke the hurricane, dude.
That whole thought has been around for a long time. It's just that the weirdest shit like is in his specific silo of information. Like he's so his particular window of information comes from such specific sources like Breitbart or Fox News, and like you can always tell that what he tweets about or is going to talk about, whatever is going to be his pet project for the week or the day, because he's got ADHD, comes directly from a specific article or something Lou Dobbs said. So like, without a doubt, somebody on Breitbart posted something like, there's no such thing as climate change, and even if there is, all we got to do is nuke these hurricanes. So he sees something like that, it like gets stuck in his brain because he's the most powerful person on Earth. The heads of all the major weather bureaus and the top scientists in the world have to like go to meetings with him. He says something stupid like that, and they have to be like, okay, sir, we'll take that under advisement. And like, they can't just be like, that's fucking stupid, because they're all, they're they're all cronies and have to tip their hat to the boss man. But
wait, so you started going to therapy. You told your therapist that you could see the changes in the climate more clearly than your average person. And then what happened?
I just don't think we're a good fit because he wants to keep circling back to like being more present or being more like, I don't know what he wants from me, but because he is a therapist that specializes in anxiety, that's the lens through which he sees everything. So like all my like issues that I come with, and you know, I could be horribly clinically depressed, or I could be, you know, just focused on dark thoughts and stuff.
Exercise?
I don't exercise. I used to, but now that I've become busier, like that's the first thing to go out the window.
Same with me. When I'm busy, that's the first thing that goes. But like,
I should spend that hour exercising instead of going to fucking
honestly,
therapy.
dude, like,
There's
for me,
no question.
For me,
There's no
exercise absolutely fixes my anxiety and depression. If I exercise every day, I just don't get anxious or depressed. And if I eat well, that just like doubles down on the issue.
Absolutely.
And if I just do those two things, especially if I don't drink as well, like if I, the main thing that gives me anxiety these days is if I drink a lot and then the next morning drink a shitload of coffee.
Sure.
Those two things combine really badly for anxiety. But like I used to have like crippling anxiety to the point where like I couldn't go to school a lot of days, and like to the point where I always felt like I was dying and shit, and like just, you know, I probably was, but like but as soon as I started exercising and eating pretty good, just enough to like not have anxiety basically is how much I like to exercise and eat well. It basically has fixed my life completely. Just like I do CrossFit like maybe twice a week, and then I do like, I don't know, some other form of exercise like once or twice a week. Sure. I don't even exercise that much, like 3 to 4 times a week for like an hour.
I've got home gym equipment. It's like there's no excuse for me not to do it.
Well,
and I wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Just
honestly, well, that's a good time
shoot
to
awake
exercise
from anxiety.
But the
so I
thing
should
is,
just go and exercise then.
Yeah, but home exercising is tough unless you're like a fucking fitness freak. I feel like what you want to do is get yourself into like a class where there's like, you know, 5-10 people and a trainer, and then that way it's like you're somewhat subconsciously competing against the other people, but also like, I don't know, it's easy to not have to like think about it as much. Like if you go into your home gym, you're like, all right, what exercise am I going to do? And like you have to come up with a plan and all that shit. Whereas if you just go into a class, someone will just be like, hey, you run over there and then back, and now lift this thing this many times this way, and now run over there and back again, and now jump over there. Like,
I have a problem with authority. And I don't love people telling me what to do, and I'm just very cynical by nature. So like,
but if it's like in the sense of exercise,
I understand that. I understand the goals. If like I listen to this jock who's like shredded, and I've just like followed his simple rules.
Most of the exercise like trainers that I've had have not been shredded jocks.
Really?
No, they've been kind of like just average looking people who just know how to put together workout plans or something like that, or. I mean, they're not like unfit, but they're not like full-blown shredded jocks. I mean, to get shredded is fucking hard. Sure. I mean, otherwise everyone would just be walking around shredded, right?
Well, do you think that would decrease the attractiveness or like
shreddedness
of like the perceived attractiveness of people if everyone was fit?
Yeah, I think.
Do you think everyone would have super good personalities too?
I don't think all shredded people have super good personalities.
No. But if like everybody was like very attractive, very fit, do you think we'd have like better personality? Like we would be forced to be like, we'd have to have some sort of other facet of our being in order to attract people or be superior to one another.
I would like to think that personalities are already the more attractive thing of a person.
Oh, you're not shallow at all. You're a very deep person.
Well, I know that like from my own perspective, I've like had the option to have sex with quite attractive women and then haven't wanted to because of their personalities.
Okay. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And vice versa, like, have been really attracted to people who I would not have necessarily thought originally were very attractive, but have turned out to be super cool people and stuff.
I absolutely agree.
There's like obviously a good middle ground there of like personality and attractiveness.
Sure. Yeah. No, I do agree with you. I just I always, I have to go to the extreme case and just wonder if like,
I don't think if everyone was shredded, it would immediately make everybody have good personalities, but I do think that it would like rid society of a few things. It would rid society of obviously fat shaming.
Sure.
And it would rid society of like probably a bunch of ego shit, because, you know, these people who are like, there would be no like, hopefully less depression of people being like down on themselves and stuff like that. I mean, by proxy of being shredded, you have to exercise a lot. So let's assume that everybody just exercised a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, society would be much better if everyone exercised a lot.
Have you noticed that a lot of popular DJs are very tall?
I have not actually noticed.
You
that.
haven't?
Like very popular DJs?
Yeah.
I'm taller than Deadmau5 by a lot.
Well, okay. Joshua, for instance,
Josh is
6'4"?
Yeah, he's quite tall.
Pretty Lights?
Liquid Stranger, not tall.
Okay.
Immersive, not tall. He's not really super popular yet, but he will be. Bass Nectar's not very tall.
Isn't he? He's fairly tall, right? He's 6'1".
I've never stood next to him, but I don't think.
How tall are you? 6'2"?
6'4".
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or maybe 6'3.5".
Okay. Okay.
I stood next to a guy the other day who was 6'5", and he fucking towered over me. But also, it's like, I don't meet people very often that are taller than me. So whenever I meet anybody whose eyes are like even just above my eyes, I'm like, whoa, like it seems really big to me, even if they're like half an inch taller than me or something.
So humor me, and let's say that on average, like successful DJs are just on average a couple inches taller. So you take that to its next logical conclusion. Why are we attracted to height in our society as it's set up now? Because that denotes safety and power and all that. And what a DJ does is it has to convince everyone in the room to get on the same page and do what they want them to do, dance or listen to this.
Like mass hypnosis kind of thing.
Exactly.
I just don't think that's true, because Tipper is not tall. Spongel,
but he doesn't.
Simon is
he
not
also
tall.
doesn't try to get people to wave their hands in the air or like 1, 2, 3 jump. He doesn't get on the mic ever.
Right.
So like it really is a reliance on the music.
His
itself.
music is very tall.
His music is extraordinarily tall. We're gonna see him tonight.
Yeah.
Are you excited about that?
Yeah, actually, I am. Yeah, I am. I've seen him at Bisco. That was sick.
Okay.
Really cool. So yeah, I'm curious. His set at Bisco was fucking heavy. I also seen him at Infrasound earlier this year, which was also sick. His set at Infrasound was like kind of more techie, and his one at Bisco was just drop, which was kind of interesting for a Tipper set, just to hear Tipper drops.
Well, I mean, you get that he knows set and setting too, and like, you know, he wants to deliver a certain sound to a certain
like
audience.
The master of set and
The last time I saw him was Spongel Red Rocks, which was...
Wait, you were there?
Yeah, I was standing next to you.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah. I was fucking blasted on mushrooms that night. So, like, this dude came up to me in the audience, and he was like, holy shit, Mr. Bill. And he gave me a Tootsie Roll sized...
I remember this.
Yeah. So the Tootsie Roll thing was like half an ounce of mushrooms condensed into this goo.
Right.
That was the size of a Tootsie Roll.
You really wanted me to eat mushrooms that night.
Yeah.
And it would have been fun, but I would have been completely useless as a manager. I had desert dwellers there. I would have been completely useless.
Yeah, I just started pulling bits off this Tootsie Roll and rolling them into a ball and eating them. And by the time we like got out of Red Rocks, I was fucking blasted, man.
You were very funny, and there was people recognize you everywhere because you were tall.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think there's some sort of cult leader, some sort of... There has to be some sort of correlation. I should talk to a sociologist. There's probably a sociologist who's into this type of music. If you're a sociologist, reach out to... do you have a podcast email yet?
Just reach out to mgmt@mrbillstunes.com. Hey, this is your request, man.
That's true. Okay, fine. Somebody do a peer-reviewed study on DJ height, popularity. Put those on some cross axes, and let's get some information on this.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be too hard to do. I mean, you could probably just pull from Wikipedia pages like heights, and then you could probably pull. Like,
Tiesto's tall.
Yeah, I think he's pretty tall.
Armin van Buuren's short.
Yeah, and
he's Scandinavian. Shouldn't he be taller?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Scandinavian people should be tall in general.
Yeah.
I think like East... hey, so I did 23andMe the other day. Have you done that before?
Oh, I don't want to give the police information should I choose to commit crimes later.
Yeah, I told Squanto about this, and he was like, dude, they're going to fucking clone you and then torture your clone.
Some real Jerry Bruckheimer shit. The island, yeah. I had that fucking thought when I was a child. I thought it was a genius. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to write a story about like a fucking place where they just keep your clones because you need to harvest them for organs later on. And it fucking turned out to be a movie. Turns out to be like a very universal thought that people have. But we're so there. And like, yeah, why wouldn't you keep a fucking cryogenically frozen clone for when your liver or your lung inevitably fails?
Yeah,
like,
so you can just get a new one.
Just make sure they're not conscious. Take that part of the brain out. And you know, it's my DNA. Make me another one of me. I bet rich people are already doing this. There's no question.
So yeah, I did 23andMe because I know that I have some Aboriginal blood in me.
Really?
Yeah. So I know that for a fact. Like the Australian government, like in my family tree, if you go like a few generations back, my mum's side is like fairly Aboriginal. Like a few generations back, like maybe 3 or 4, like great grandmother was probably like fully Aboriginal or something like that.
Wow.
Or great grandmother rather.
Is it in Australia like it is here in the United States? Like people want to brag, like, oh yeah, I'm 1/8 Cherokee or whatever. Like,
yeah, but
is it cool in Australia to be like, oh, I'm part Aborigine?
No, but the government does give you free shit if you at all Aboriginal.
Wow.
Like if it's at all in your bloodline. So I get like healthcare there is already free,
right?
But I also get free dental because I'm Aboriginal, and I also like
what a cool kicker, free dental.
Yeah. So you usually don't get dental for free in Australia unless you're Aboriginal.
Wow.
And then on top of that, like you can get like different sets of like payments from like Centrelink, which is basically like the social security system there.
Yeah.
And the payments for Aboriginal people are just like slightly higher. And then you can also study at like not like the big independent colleges. Like I went to SAE and I had to pay for that.
Right.
But like if I went to like a community type college like TAFE or something like that, or I think Sydney University I probably could have gone to, and that would have been covered by the government too.
Wow.
And I think I can still do that. I think that might still be an option for me if I want. But anyway, I did 23andMe and it turns out that I'm like 1.5% Melanesian, which is like basically Aboriginal.
Okay.
And here's the funnier thing is I'm like 1.9% Indian. So I'm more Indian than Aboriginal.
You know what's crazy? You know, I mean, Mike Wallace, Osmetic, one half of Crunch with Tipper, looks very, very British.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily British.
Yeah.
And so when he told me that he has an Indian grandparent, I want to say, I was blown away. And I was like, I was probably 3 or 4 White Claws in at Celesta at this point.
I have still never drank a White Claw.
It's fucking delicious.
Yeah.
It's the best. And if you drink them properly, you don't get hungover. You don't get too drunk. You're
How
like,
do you
right,
drink a White Claw properly?
Well, you don't slam it. You don't shotgun it. You sip on it. You drink it like an adult, which is very hard for me because it goes down so smooth, and it's a good daytime drink. So it's a good way to start yelling at Mike Wallace in the middle of the day at a festival, demanding to see his birth certificate. But like the other day, he sent me like photos from the 40s of his like fully Indian family.
Wow.
And it is so fucking incredible because he looks extraordinarily white.
Yeah. So it turns out I am extraordinarily white.
But you have a little Indian in you.
I have, about 3% not white. So
what's the rest? English, straight up?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like all sorts of European stuff. So it's like 60% British, maybe like 7% French, 5% German, bunch of Irish and Scottish and Welsh and basically just a little bit of Spanish too. Like just basically all sorts of shit from like up
all
there.
All sorts of white Europeanism.
Yeah, I'm basically Euro trash.
You're the you distilled all the good parts from all those traditions.
Right.
You got into one.
I have naps in the afternoon. I drink a shitload of beer.
Yeah, but you don't, and you're not drinking now, which is fucking crazy to me. And like, I got into music management and stuff because, like I said, failed musician, but like being at home and knowing that you have to be in airports day after day and in other people's cars and like in green rooms for hours at a time, just waiting to go on.
It sucks.
Like, I cannot believe that you could do that sober a lot of the time.
Yeah. So for me,
it's like that's how I pass the time, is like eating and drinking.
Totally. Yeah. No, me too. But like for me, I think it's just like maybe 2 years ago, I came to this conclusion of like, if I don't control my drinking, I won't have a long career.
Correct.
And like, I won't be able, like, cause I noticed I was still in the studio every day, but I was just in the studio like fucking around and I wasn't really getting anything finished. I was like starting a lot of stuff and I was always like in Ableton, but I just was working so inefficiently and so badly that I was like never really getting releases together. And then it was at the start of 2017 when I was like, all right, I'm going to like, or maybe it was the start of 2018. It was one of the...
I think you decided you were going to do the first 3 months of 2018.
Yeah, so it was 2018.
Stone cold sober.
Yeah. And that's what KJ does. He's like, he does the reset button every year.
Right.
To like kind of reset any alcoholism, gives himself a full 3-month sober break.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. So at the start of 2018, did a 3-month break and then just bam, finished Apophenia. And I was like, oh, sweet, being sober is cool. You can like actually finish music really easily when your like head is all straight and shit.
So you get foggy. You already said that you suffer anxiety, but like your hangovers manifest themselves as anxiety, right? Or maybe am I just projecting here? Because that's where my
I get
anxiety comes from.
Yeah,
is like straight up from hangovers.
Yeah, I get a lot of...
I can't even like open email or like...
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I get that. Like a lot of anxiety from hangovers. And yeah, I find it really hard to get productive. And then, maybe by 4 p.m. in the afternoon, that's kind of like dissipated and I'll start to get productive. And then like 2 hours later, I'll get drunk again. And then the whole thing happens again. So it's like I get like when I'm drinking, like a 2-hour window of the day where I'm actually able to do anything.
Yeah.
And with not drinking, I'm just always on. And I also noticed while I was drinking a lot, and for people who are listening, drinking a lot, I was drinking every day, basically.
Yeah.
And when I tell people how much I was drinking every day, the reactions are like varied. Some people are like, oh, that's not that much. And then other people are like, that's insane. Basically,
tell me, shock me. I think I already know the answer, but
it's like a 6-pack of IPAs a day, basically. And
that's a lot of...
But they were like 8%.
Yeah.
So like pretty slapping beers. And
over the course of...
like a session, 5-6 hours.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's still a lot of beer to drink, like 6 a day.
Yeah, and it's not taking the edge off your production technique or even just like your physical ability to like be very precise with your mouse clicks.
No, I can work through it for sure, but I don't work very efficiently.
Yeah.
I work like what I could get done in 5 or 6 hours drinking that much, I could get done in like an hour if I just wasn't drinking.
Sure.
So so I just wasn't getting a lot done, and I basically just came to the realization if I don't like somehow figure something out, then it's just going to be like a shitty career. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, what I'll do is I'll do the 3 months at the start of the year, then I'll do like dry July and then sober October, and just give myself like these break periods. This year I kind of fucked it up. I did all of January dry, and then I broke my toe. And usually when I'm like not drinking, I like to also be exercising. And because I broke my toe, I was like, oh, what's the point? And then just like started drinking when I was in Spain teaching.
Right.
But then I did do sober September, which I don't usually do. And now I'm doing sober October. So I'm sort of like making up the time.
Yeah.
I probably won't drink much for the rest of the year. Maybe I will in Australia. I don't know.
Do you think that would help with your general mental attitude to you as well as, as it gets cold and as it gets a little, there's less, I guess you live in Colorado, so you get a lot of sun anyway.
Yeah, Colorado's great.
So you're not going to get, naturally depressed from the winter, and you have to combat that by being sober. You would be fine if you were drinking through the winter.
Yeah, totally.
Which is what a lot of people do, like hunker down, drink a lot.
Well, in Colorado, I feel like a lot of people go and get into that whole ski lifestyle.
Sure,
and they just start fucking pounding beers at 10 a.m. and skiing all day.
Yeah, but that's being so active that it's like almost like leapfrogging the drinking. If you're that active and like you have to be up at fucking 3 a.m. to get out to the mountains anyway. Right. So like you're already on some sort of schedule that's like very active. Like the drinking is sort of the least of your worries at that point.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I stopped drinking so much.
But how do you deal with the boredom of like waiting to go on? Because you go on late at night.
Yeah, I just find other shit to do. Like, I mean, I'll either get into conversations with people or I'll like play chess on my phone, or I don't know, just like sit around like texting people or looking at Twitter or something. I don't know. I'll just find something else to do, or like get on my laptop and make patches for serum or something.
That's funny. Well, when did you get into chess? It was pretty recently, right?
No, at this point it was about a year and a bit ago. Okay. Maybe a year and a half. But I like played as a kid.
Yeah,
but then I never really got like massively into it until like a year and a half ago. And I was like, I'm actually going to like start trying to take it seriously. And I would like to find a grandmaster that I could like learn from or whatever, but there's just none in Colorado. There's like, I think 2 in St. Louis and maybe like 2 in Atlanta or something.
It's such a cerebral distraction. Like, could you imagine if someone was playing those little Bejeweled or puzzle games and was like, yeah, I'm a grandmaster at this, I'm really good. But no, you're just like some dick that's just playing this game in line at the supermarket, like just wasting time. But you don't feel like chess gets in the way of anything else for you. It's not like an addiction. Like you'd rather open up your chess game than, go sit in Ableton.
No, I'd prefer to be in Ableton. But the problem with Ableton is like, well, the problem with producing music is it's like you need a physical space to do it because sound is a physical thing.
Yeah.
It's not like art, you know. I mean, art obviously is a physical thing too, but like you can draw like on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper, whether or not you're drawing in this room or in your room at home or in the pub down the road or in a restaurant or at a library or on a plane, it doesn't matter. It's still a piece of paper that
Well, it depends on your medium. Like a sculptor couldn't do that, or somebody who's working
Totally.
with like large scale acrylics or oils or something.
Yeah, right. So I would liken the logistical issue of writing music more to maybe a sculptor, because you need a physical space and you need like particular things to do it. I mean, yeah, you can write music in headphones, but it's just not the same as like writing on speakers or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could be in a green room writing music, that'd be like the move to combat boredom for sure.
Right.
But it's just difficult just because of like, you know, you need a quiet area where you can produce sound.
Right. And green rooms are notoriously overrun with
Bass
bass
and vibrations and cokeheads.
and cokeheads and random people scurrying around and getting this and that.
Dude, I have not done coke in years, and I fucking cannot stand people on cocaine,
It's a lot. It's a lot.
especially multiple people in the green room on coke. It's like, it's so intense. I'm just like, all right.
Intensely banal conversations.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you've told me the same story like 4 or 5 times at this point. Can you please, like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I just like can't fucking stand people who just constantly repeat stories to you.
Sure.
Or like they're way too verbose with the story, like getting into every little like nook and cranny detail about like some dumb thing you don't even care about in the
I
first
think I have
place.
the tendency to do that.
Where like the punchline is they just like did this thing and it was cool or something.
Yeah. I need to get better about tightening up my stories. We were talking about how comedians are able to really carry you along every step of the way and deliver the like nut of the fact.
The reason why though is because they really engineer those stories, you know, like if you go and see a comedian, especially if they're like at the theater level,
Sure.
because the way that comedians work, from what my understanding of listening to enough of them on podcasts, is they will do like they'll do like clubs, you know, like small clubs, like in Denver, it's Comedy Works.
Right.
They'll do the whole club circuit, test all their stories over the period of that, figure out what's hitting and what's not, and then engineer them more, like, you know, pull bits out, add other bits in, like fuck with them a bunch.
Right. Or for a talk show, if somebody's going to be on Conan or somebody's going to be on Corden or something, they will run their set in clubs around and just run it until it's tight. Like they'll
do that. They'll do all the clubs, and then they'll do all the theaters. And then once they're like, okay, this is like a theater level set, then they'll record a special.
Right.
And then they'll like
burn that material,
build a new set, and then do all the clubs again.
Right.
That's what I understand the comedian circuit is like.
But that's for a story that's built into a bit. Even if you're talking off the cuff about something that's not material, they still know how to deliver that story in that way that gives enough detail, gives enough setup,
they're
without losing people along the way.
Yeah, they're professional talkers, so it's like, I think they're just good at that stuff. But I still think you could probably find yourself a pretty annoying comedian on coke.
Oh yeah, I've met plenty of those too. I also meet like people who completely shut down. Like it's just an inner monologue. Like
if they're on coke.
Oh yeah. There's some people who get quiet on it, certainly. But yeah, that is the problem with green rooms. The boredom and then the excessive exuberance by people who find themselves in the green room, and this is like their one night to party, and they're hanging out with their friends who's in their town, and they don't realize that the artist just got off a 3-day run or about to do another 4-day run, came straight from the airport, going straight to the hotel, going straight to another flight, whatever, and don't realize like this is your workspace. This is your this is supposed to be your quiet zone. The perception of green rooms, which has been completely blown out of proportion by behind the music specials on the 80s, has completely destroyed what is supposed to be a sacred space for artists.
Yeah, that has been one of the good things about touring with Anderson, is they're pretty particular about like keeping the green room clear of like everyone pretty much. Great. Yeah, it's literally just like usually me, Anderson, Kyle Supertask, and Austin, the TM.
Who's amazing.
He's
Austin
great, yeah.
Is so good at what he does.
Yeah, he is.
I couldn't even convince him to go bowling with me before the Closey Desert Dwellers after party at Spangle, even though we had enough time and he was all set up. He's very driven. but I would have swamped them in 10 frames in about 23 minutes.
What's your bowling average?
I am lucky if I break 100, but I'm super streaky. Like I'll get 3 or 4 strikes in a row and then just start throwing gutters just because like my technique has to be perfectly down. And like once I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, I'm off. Same with darts and stuff.
That I was bowling competitively on like a state and almost national level in Australia when I was like 10?
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, my average when I was like 12 was about like 180.
Holy shit.
Like between like 160 and 180 it would fluctuate.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, I went bowling with Jan the other day in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And I think one game I got like 110 and the other game I got like 150, but I hadn't bowled in like years.
We should definitely go bowling.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, let's do it.
It's so much fun, and it's so like meditative. I should have spent my fucking therapy money in that hour on bowling because, I mean, I can't bowl.
Like,
I can't bowl and not drink, but like it's so meditative. You're doing this.
Like
it's a repetitive motion. I mean, I guess other people have to drink to find bowling interesting. I don't think I've done it sober in 20 years.
I love bowling sober.
I imagine I'd be great at it, probably better at it.
Yeah, totally.
Do you still have your own bowling shoes?
No, I used to have my own shoes and I used to have a ball with a skull in it.
Oh, that's so fucking sick. That's so fucking sick. What is your size ball? Or maybe it's different from Australia.
I mean, usually when you get a custom ball made, they just go and like measure your hand basically and then they like drill the holes for you.
But don't you determine the weight of it?
Oh yeah, the weight was 15 pounds.
15. I think I'm a 13.
Okay.
Which is probably unlucky. But
that was when I was 12.
Oh, sure. So
like it'd probably still be probably.
What's 15. The advantage of a heavier ball? Just the more strike on the pin to make the chaos more?
I actually don't think I don't know if a heavier ball is like better because I mean there's female bowlers who use like 8-pound balls and bowl 300s and shit.
Sure.
Which is like all strikes. So it's like
maybe it's the movement arm, the lever motion. It's something you have to create the right centrifugal force. Would that be using your
centrifugal is spinning force, I think.
So centripetal would be using your shoulder as a focal point and your arm as the lever.
Pivotal force, isn't it?
Pivotal force. Okay.
Like your shoulder would be the pivot point.
So there would have to be some sort of relationship between the weight of the ball and the length and strength of your arm.
I
in
really
order to get the perfect.
I just think it's what you're comfortable with. Like,
well, sure. I mean, people aren't out there doing math. They're like,
you're better off bowling with a ball. I think that is a comfortable weight for you than bowling with something that's heavier because you think it's going to hit the pins harder or something.
Or lighter because you think you can throw it faster.
Right, exactly, yeah. You're better off going with something that you just feel like is part of your hand and you're comfortable with.
What's your style? Do you put English on it or?
I don't spin or anything, no. Okay. I'm pretty like straight
down the middle.
Yeah, well, I think I usually stand like slightly to the right and then I just sort of go in on an angle and try and hit between the top 2 pins basically.
I'm left-handed, so I think I start, let me try and figure this out. I think I start.
Anand is standing up right now showing me his bowling techniques.
I guess I start, a little off center. I think I do, kind of come in an angle. And then you kind of
come in this way?
Yeah, which I think is why when I'm off, I'm guttering on the opposite side of my arm.
Yeah,
I'm over. Sense.
A lot of people do that. So you really want to come through and like follow your arm through, but if you let go too late, then that's when it would right. So you just got to let go at the right time.
What does your back leg do when you're done? Are you kicking it back?
My right leg goes behind me this way.
Yeah.
And my front leg, this one is the one I put my weight on.
Yeah, I kick weird at the end.
Yeah,
like a little flourish. And what is the purpose of that? Just to maintain the
just to get your
balance?
leg out of the way, to give your arm some space.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, never taken a lesson or anything. Were you like in lessons when you were bowling at that level?
Yeah, so the place that I lived in Australia was literally right behind a bowling alley.
Huh.
And my parents were just like, yeah, you can go bowl. And they like paid for me to be in like a league and shit.
Wow.
And then I did that for like maybe 2 years. And like in the league, I think you would, you would like verse other people and shit.
Yeah.
And they were all like teams of 2 or 4. So I was in 2 leagues, I think. And then within that, there would be like, adults there helping you like work on your technique and stuff.
And you were dominating?
I wouldn't say dominating. I mean, like
was the level of your team just so good that you guys ended up being state ranked or like at least state competitive?
Yeah, we weren't state ranked. We were definitely like, I mean, I think we were definitely competing on a state level, but we weren't like winning and shit.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we were definitely doing okay. definitely at the bowling alley behind my house, we were like winning a lot.
Would you hustle adults?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I probably could have though. Like I was better than my mum and dad at the time, and they were also in a league.
Okay. I didn't know
yeah.
bowling was popular in Australia.
It is. There's like a lady there who at the time, I don't know if she's still popular, but a lady there called Cara Honeychurch was like insane
That
at the time.
is such an insanely Australian name.
Yeah, right. And then there's this other guy, I can't remember what his name is, but like one of the other best bowlers in the world, I think he might even still be, is Australian too.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Were you super tall at this point?
I was probably like only 6 foot or something when I was 12, maybe a little shorter.
Does having a lower center of gravity give you an advantage in bowling?
I don't think so. I think like I really don't think like short or tall makes bowling like makes you a better bowler.
And you definitely don't have to be ripped, and you definitely don't have to be in shape.
No, there's like fat, stocky, short, amazing bowlers.
It really is about a repetitive motion, just like curling.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is like down to the technique, and the technique isn't about endurance or stamina or training. It really is like muscle memory and like having
it's
that
like
precision.
It's all technique, yeah. You definitely don't have to be super fit. Like same with like billiards and like darts and shit.
Sure. Yeah.
They all like kind of come under that like lazy guys sport.
Now golf has become like super athletic. Like it used to be a bunch of John Daly's like chomping on cigars with big beer bellies.
Totally.
But now everyone's super trim, like working out, big arms, because there is an athletic part to it. Like at the end, it's finesse. At the end, it's like bowling when you're like putting and shit. But in the beginning, like if you're able to drive the ball a billion yards, like then you have an advantage.
So you probably want to be like strong, right? Like pretty able to hit the ball like fairly hard.
Right. But like bowling is you're not physically knocking the pins down. You are using some sort of like some application of physics. I think it's just you have to be able to do the same motion over and over again. Because if you can do it once, you can do it. What is it? What is a full? If you get 13 strikes in a row, would be 300.
I think because you
would have to have the perfect motion down 13 times
12,
in a row. 12
because you would like there's 9 frames and then the last frame, the 10th frame is 3 strikes.
Right. So you have to be able to do one thing perfectly 12 times in order to be at the top of your.
That's to play
game.
A perfect game.
Yeah.
But professionals don't have a 300 average.
I know, and that's crazy. Like what a small. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's such a small window of perfection. Like it seems like such a small step to be able to like do one thing.
Just 12 times.
Which like a 6-year-old child, their first time bowling could accidentally like throw a strike. So like it's something that people can do on accident or somewhat purposefully. But the best of the best are able to do it 12 times in a row, and that is the absolute like. That's perfection. And how often do professional bowlers bowl 300s?
I would say like maybe 1 in 30 games or something.
Wow.
Have you ever seen someone bowl a 300?
No. Have you?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
My friend at the time who was also 12 bowled a 300.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was the entire like place like watching him?
Yeah, everyone was like pretty stoked. His mum was also a professional bowler.
Wow.
And then he, I think, went on to be maybe professional. I'm not actually sure what he ended up doing. I haven't talked to him in years.
Oh, that is so wild. Like, did he want the attention as he was like?
I don't think so. No,
because like we were talking about Doc Ellis and his no hitter earlier. Like baseball is so full of superstition. If someone's on their way to a no hitter, like it's kind of obvious by the 5th or 6th inning. Like, oh my God, he's actually got a chance to do this. Right. And so you never want to mention it. You never want to mention it. But like
just in case you like throw them off mentally or something.
Yeah, it's very superstitious, but like also you have to get away. You got to get out of your own head because pitching is very much like bowling. It's all very mental. Yeah. But like I don't know what it's like in bowling if somebody's about to achieve a 300.
I think it's more just the bowler themselves not getting in their own head about it. Because it's like if you're at fucking 11 strikes and then it's like, oh fuck, I got to get one more strike or I'm not going to get 300. Like that's got to be the hardest strike to get, right?
Yeah, I mean. Or is the first strike the hardest strike to get? Like maybe
the first one's definitely not the hardest to get, or
like, maybe like the 4th or 5th.
The first one is like a no pressure strike.
Okay,
but you also do want to open a game with a strike, like that's
sure. But like the 4th or the 5th has got to be the hardest because you're like, I'm kind of doing this, but after like the 7th or the 8th, you're like, I am going to do this. I can accomplish this.
I don't think I would do that. I think after the 7th or the 8th, I'd be like, the chance that I'll fuck it up just gets bigger and bigger.
I wonder. Oh man,
It's kind of why I like DJing though. It's because like no matter like what's going on at the time, you're like, this is all malleable. Like I can constantly fix this.
Sure.
I kind of like that.
You don't feel like. Well, yeah, I guess that totally makes sense.
Like with DJing, you can be like train wrecking and like kind of turn it into a vibe.
Do you think it's easier to train wreck now because like people expect a certain level of experimentalism?
No.
Especially in this scene?
No, I think I've become way less susceptible to train wrecking just because I've had way more experience now.
Sure.
But also back in the day, I was playing way harder to mix music.
Yeah.
And I was a less good DJ.
Yeah.
Now I'm a better DJ and I'm playing stuff that's easier to mix.
You used to really be down on your own DJ skills. And even as recently as like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think I like picked it up pretty hard in the last few years.
Yeah.
A lot of that actually was because a lot of it came from like chatting with friends.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I realized this is a problem that I have, and I realize it's like an area of my career that I want to like lift up.
Sure.
So I was chatting with like Sodown a bunch about DJing, even though he's like not really a DJ. He does everything out of Ableton.
And he plays sax too, right?
Yeah. I mean, he is a DJ, but like, you know,
But there's a lot more things going on. Yeah.
Yeah, he does other shit too. I talked to Skylar, Jade Cicada, a shitload about DJing. I talked to Squanto a ton.
Yeah.
Just like a bunch of friends who are like, especially someone like Squanto who does like octo chops and shit.
Right.
He's like a great dude to talk to about sets, you know? And just people who were like really crushing it on the set side of things. I just started asking a lot of questions. And then I think from that, it like gave me instilled more confidence in like me to be able to put together sets well. And then I just started like messing around with it more on my own accord. And then I think now I've sort of like got it in a spot where I feel really comfortable with it.
For Squanto, because the chops have become such a part of like the allure, is that like just like a shit ton of guitar solos during a set? Like, does that break up the flow of the dance? Like, that's not exactly my scene, so I don't know like if people are like, you know, if people consider it like a dance music scene and like people are getting to the set, or like it's not the entire set long, obviously, but like are those like guitar solos where they come at natural peaks, or is it like something that's like watching Yngwie Malmsteen or something where it's just like technical stuff the entire time and not like peaks and valleys with these great solos that come and go with it?
Like, you mean is the octo, like is the part where he's chopping a bunch of stuff like considered a guitar solo?
Right.
Maybe, yeah. I think,
or is that what's happening the entire fucking time?
I think he's doing it almost the entire time.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is the way he does it, he's not really like specifically triggering a lot of stuff. So he like, I think mostly has all the tracks running in Ableton.
Right.
Running onto multiple channels on the mixer.
Right.
And he's really just turning faders up and down.
Right.
But the hard part of that and the impressive part of that is the amount of work that has to go in for him to like make that set.
Right.
Like,
to find 8 songs
that work together for 60 minutes.
But in that certain style of music, aren't the drops pretty like mapped out over 8 bars, 16 bars, whatever?
Yeah, I would say that like that's probably the best style of music that would lend itself to that kind of thing.
Right. You couldn't do that in glitch
But
hop.
if you say that to a rhythm person, they do not agree. They think that it's like some crazy godlike skill to be able to find 2 rhythm tracks that work together.
Yeah. I mean, he's done a good job of like marketing it to people as like this is something crazy and new. And people are like, this was something that was very surprising to me. That like there's a whole subculture of people who like identify when somebody steals your double or steals like your like matching these 2 drops in a song. Like that's like sacrilege in that realm to like steal someone's mixing 2 songs into each other.
Honestly, yeah, stealing a double's probably not cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do that. Like if I actually quite often I'll like tell Dirt Monkey my doubles because a lot of them involve his songs and I'm like, hey, here's a double. Feel free to use it if you want.
Sure.
But like, I think if I did a double with one of his songs and then he chose to take it like without me saying he could or something, I still probably wouldn't give a shit.
Right.
But I would never do that to like say if he found a double between one of my songs and something else, I probably wouldn't then take that to my set or something.
Right.
Because yeah, part of it is like finding a fresh double or a fresh triple or now people are like quite often doing quads now as well. Where Octo Chop. Yeah.
That shit is wild.
Yeah. So really what a double is, we talked about this in the Dirt Monkey podcast. It's where you just find like 2 or 3 tracks that work together. And then on the mixer, you like EQ all the lows and highs pretty much out of 2 of them. And then kind of have the meat going from one of them. And then the ones that you would have like just the mids or the highs coming out of would be some like sort of nostalgic track like Sweet Shop by Dr. P or some shit.
Yeah.
And the one that you would have like all the full frequencies going for would be like a modern track, like, you know, some recent Ula-style banger or something.
Yeah.
And then you would sort of just run them all over the top of each other. So it still sounds like Sweet Shop by Dr. P,
Right.
but it's just way more hard hitting and heavy. And then, so it's kind of like on the fly sort of mashups, remix type deals. And it is pretty cool. And when
It's
you do
very
it,
cool, yeah.
when you do it live, it sounds like really intense.
Yeah.
My issue with them is it's really difficult to get out of them. So like once you start doing them, it's hard to like not keep doing them.
Right.
Because
you'd have to just do a hard cut or like just throw it like, yeah.
It's really hard to go back to just playing one track on its own once you've been layering 2 for like 10 minutes straight.
And Squanto's just doing that the entire time.
I think the entire time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw one of his sessions, one of his Ableton sessions for how he builds it, and it's fucking intense, man. There's like 100 channels of just tracks. Because he was building a set when I was there that week for some shit he was doing in Hawaii or something. Yeah.
And he's just not touring anymore, right? Or like
So he's
dropping the numbers way down.
Yeah, I think he just wants to do a lot less because he grinded real hard.
Yeah.
Even this year, he's done more shows than I have. Like, and even this is a year where he's decided he didn't want to do shows.
This is a low dose.
Yeah, this
year.
is a low year for him, and he's still done like 60 shows or something.
Yeah.
Because he was on tour with Excision at the start of the year.
Got it.
So he did, I think, like 50 dates with him.
Yeah.
And then I want to say he did like a bunch of festivals too. I think he did E-Forest.
Okay.
And then I think he did probably a bunch of other shit that I'm not thinking of. And then he did that Summit Music Hall play in Denver that I did with him.
Right.
And then I think he's just doing like small sort of things. He's definitely trying to taper off at this point, I think.
Right.
And he wants to get more into like teaching and other
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. When I went to Salt Lake last week, actually, I went and did a talk at like this school that I think he wants to teach at.
Okay.
It's called like, the acronym is SLDP.
Right.
But I don't know what that means. I think it's Salt Lake Digital Production or something.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a lane, and you've obviously paved that lane before your touring lane was teaching and you know, dispensing your knowledge, which I guess brings us full circle. Like, you really did like come up as a teacher as your music was catching on. Do you think that gives you more perspective in terms of like the longevity part of your career, because you weren't just going from your basement to the shows? Like,
yeah, in some way, yeah. But also I think like that bred a problem for me in that like a lot of my fan base was and still is producers, and producers generally don't like to go to shows as much as just like, you know, people who are working a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week and then they need a release, you know?
Yeah.
So they're like, I'm going to go fucking party my ass off now. Producers are kind of in their room just grinding away at shit, and they just want to do creative stuff. And in general, I don't think necessarily want to go out to shows as much as these other types of people who really, if you're trying to build a show career, you want those types of people to be your fans, right? The people who are like going to go to every fucking show.
Right. Which I think was giving you, you know, some problems a couple years ago. You were wondering like, am I playing to the right crowds? Am I playing the right stuff for people? But I think you yourself have figured out a way to release music that is like IDM, very like cerebral, like driven by your desires to evolve your own music sound. And then you also have like, you know, your popcorn, like you're able to produce bangers and like find the thing that really hits the crowd at the right time and the right moment for where that music is. And I think finding that balance for you has changed your own outlook on your own shows and touring and all that.
Oh yeah, totally. And I also think a part of it is just like me realizing that I can compartmentalize stuff a little differently and a bit more like clear for people to understand, which is something that I think was imperative to Tipper's success a few years ago too, where he like very clearly branded 2 different sets as like the down tempo sets and the up tempo sets. And then I think like I'm doing a sort of similar thing where I'm sort of doing these like Ableton talks, and I'm doing like YouTube tutorials, and then I'm doing Twitch streams, and then a podcast, and then also making bangers for sets.
Right.
And like I'm sort of just like compartmentalizing a bunch of things and trying to make it easy for people to understand that I do a bunch of different shit, rather than being like, I'm an IDM teacher, dubstep, whatever the fuck, and like if you come to see my show, you'll have no idea what you're gonna get, sort of thing. And I think that's what was like fucking me up a while ago, is that I didn't really understand my project myself.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for other people to understand it.
Sure.
All I understood, I think, about my project was that I'm into Ableton.
Right.
And I like to do Ableton things regardless of what that means.
I think what's really helped is also the level of understanding amongst fans has risen dramatically. Like you've got people who would ordinarily just be fans and want to go to a show, like messaging you before the show, like what kind of sound system is there going to be at the club?
Yeah, right.
Like begging for their favorite Hennessy, Function One, whatever, PK.
Oh, dude, speaking of which, bringing the Function Ones for the show with Chris was totally the move, man.
Absolutely.
It sounded so sick in there.
Absolutely. And Canyon does an incredible job.
Yeah.
He knows the room so well. Canyon Walker with Subverted Entertainment, shouts to him. He knows that room really well. He is constantly getting more fucking Function One. He cannot stop. He's got an addiction. And so he's always getting the latest versions of their latest rigs and tuning the same rooms that he does over and over again to the point where he can really make a room sound incredible. And yeah, the fan base, the knowledge base of the fans has increased dramatically over the past couple of years as people get into more and more intricate stuff. And you can see that in the Slugwife community, where like people like trying to break down what each track is, and they're like, "Is this a Cursa tune? Is this broken? Oh, this is that new SEPA. I think this is the secret tipper that only they get."
Right.
And what's hilarious is they are assholes in that group and are like, "Oh yeah, this is the new secret tipper. Only we have it." And you know, like people are turning electronic music into jam bands, which is hilarious. Like,
cool,
oh,
man.
I got this particular song in this city. I got to go follow, my favorite DJ to Chicago or Miami to hopefully get this song or that song. And like,
right, which is great. I mean, like you want that level of engagement from fans,
Absolutely.
really, because I mean, it's nice when you get that engagement of level from the artist perspective, because it makes you want to go back home and like make more bespoke shit for your sets, you know?
Sure.
And it's like when you're driven to like make the set better, then the sets get better, and then everyone's experience gets better, and the whole thing hopefully like snowballs and all that sort of shit.
Is there a song that people ask you for more than anything else? Like people obviously beg JaiSha for Space Jam and like, you know, expect it or want it in a particular set.
Actually, there is now. It's the Jade Cicada edit.
Oh yeah.
People,
the Memphis Sunday Crunk.
Yeah,
juice,
which is an edit that me and Kill Smith put together for our Kill Bill set like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been hit up by so many fucking people for that. Like a bunch of big artists too with like 20, 30,000 Instagram followers like DMing me being like, "Hey man, mind if I grab a copy of that?" And I'm like, me and Chris are both like, "No, like
you can't do it."
Yeah. And same with the Sofa Surfing remix as well that we did.
I've seen people message you about that.
Yeah, that's another one. Basically edits of big tunes.
That would be like your double, essentially. Like, this is a very personal thing to my sets. You have to see me live to get this particular thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't know if I'm going to get to them even tonight because I've only have 45 minutes. Maybe I should just play all the edits.
I mean, you're coming out of like Vector and Frequent Kyoto.
They're after me.
They're after
I think it's Digital Ethos directly before me. Is he heavy?
He's pretty heavy.
Okay. Maybe I should just
but like earlier that night, people have just seen Detox, Jade Cicada, Tipper. And so, you know, you have an opportunity to like palette cleanse, or you kind of have a lot of like room to play with, because like obviously everyone who's into them is going to be into your set no matter what you do. So you've got a lot of freedom to like, you know, stuff in what you want to, especially at that time of night.
Right. Yeah. So I guess to finish off, because we got to leave soon for this dinner.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about management stuff, because I know that people are going to want to.
You don't want to talk more about bowling?
Yeah.
Sure. I feel like we went so far afield.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's what a podcast is for.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing this for? By the an hour and a half. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, who's your roster at the moment? I know you do me, and I know you do Zebbler Encanti Experience.
Yeah, I work with Desert Dwellers and Callias Scintilla. Black Carl is someone that I am like super excited about right now. He's got that project with Aaron Vector, who we'll see later tonight. Integrate.
Dude, that shit is sick.
It's really, really cool. And they're starting to get some cool opportunities about that. And, you know, fans are just freaking out about them. And they're so pure. They're like two goofy best friends
Christian,
from Birmingham.
Arkansas people.
Just like so fucking happy and like stoked. And like Carl still texts me and freaks out when like big people DM him for his songs, or like he hears someone play, so like Curse Up drops a integrate track out at a big place. He's still excited, and that like gets me excited because, you know, it's easy to get jaded in this industry and and really, you know, be able to think of this as a job and not get excited about the big things that happen. If you put your if you're able to like rewind the disc of your mind and get back to when you're 14 and think about the things that you're complaining about now, or like I have to fly everywhere, and like if you're able to just trick yourself into putting your 14-year-old perspective on things a little bit and be like, holy shit, I'm a musician, I'm touring all over the place, I'm doing this. It just gives you this burst of like excitement and energy, and that's what I get from Carl.
Yeah, I feel like I got jaded and then have come back to not being jaded, which is good. It's definitely better to not be jaded. Yeah. You get a lot further if you're not.
Sure.
Okay, so you have that roster, and then like, what would you say?
Let me mention one more guy. Someone I'm really, really, really excited about is Murkury, who's out of the Asheville area. I think he's back in Charlotte now. But he is making such incredible slow music, like slow dubstep, like very, very calculated stuff. And he's kind of on the spiritual tip and listens to a lot of Indian music and like takes a lot of Eastern influence and time signatures and like resonant frequencies and all that and mixes it into his stuff. But like I'm able to see him move rooms with incredibly slow, like meticulous music and like very spiritual music.
I feel like that shit's happening lately. Like
Charles
the First does
Charles
that.
is doing that
and
too.
Closey too, really. Like, I mean, it's kind of slow, soft music, but it has like some form of energy to it that really moves people.
There'll be a little bit of bass to like feel it in your chest, but they're able to move audiences and rock audiences with like very beautiful flowing music. And I think that's very important right now because you know, we get into that bro step arms race and the granular sound design type stuff and try and get like all crazy and all, you know, as over the top and brash and bold as possible. And I think every so often things reset and you get the Closies and the Charles the First. And like very beautiful
that's
music.
Kind of like I feel like Flume was that to the Skrillex era.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have that roster. What is generally your job for like those artists, and is that job different for each artist?
It is, and you know it varies from artist to artist, and also what hat I'm technically wearing at the time. And
right, because
you know,
for some artists you wear the agent hat as well as the manager hat.
Exactly. And that can get complicated and a little tricky, and it just ends up in you doing a lot of stuff. But, you know, especially at this size, I like working with developmental artists. When you start working with bigger artists, you're part of a team and you do a very specific role. But when you get to do everything for an artist, especially a young one, you get to introduce them into the seedy underbelly of the music business stuff. And for some people, they want to like know about it and are interested in it. And a lot of people are just like, I don't give a shit. I want to sit at my computer and make music and not deal with any of this stuff. So you can be educator, or you can just be an advocate and take things off their plate and be like, I'm going to take care of this for you. But you know, an agent very generally goes out and finds you shows to plays, reaches out to promoters, reaches out to venues. Sometimes promoters work hand in hand with the venues to have standard weeklies or monthly events, and you just make those connections. And because you have a roster to begin with, hopefully they trust you when you bring a new client on, and they're like, you've brought me some good clients to play these shows in the past, so I'm going to trust you with this. If you're new in the game, it really is all about networking and schmoozing and convincing other artists to bring yours on as support, to be able to tour with them, get experience in those markets. But, you know, eventually your goal is to turn your artist into a headliner. There's some acts who have been very successful just being support like throughout most of their career and are always someone who's going to be a support act. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But, you know, really at the end of the day, you're an artist and you want to share your vision. And so you want to curate a night and have the people opening up for you, you know, be someone you like or be someone that's a good lead up to you or sonically complimentary to you.
Right. Yeah. The cool thing about being a headliner, if you can sell the tickets, is that like you get the privilege of being able to pick who plays before you and really curate the whole night.
Absolutely.
From your end. And then you also get to curate the production and what that looks like
Exactly.
and like how the night would build in terms of
And
production.
nobody can fuck with you because they want your show and you sell tickets. So you
Right.
can get exactly the kind of lights you want, the exact kind of projection you want. You get to use your VJ and go, is that your set time is exactly how long you want it. You know, when you're first in this business and when we're working with smaller artists, sometimes you get pushed around a little bit. And sometimes you have to take deals you don't want to take because you don't want to miss out on an opportunity. And sometimes, you know,
You're like playing in Billings, Montana for $400 on a Tuesday night or something.
Right. And you gotta hold your clients' hands through those parts and say, this is the grind it out phase. This is the hard work you have to do to get into all these markets, to build up your fan base, to build your name, because eventually you will be a headliner and people will become lifelong fans if they saw you in Billings, Montana in 2015 and you rocked the shit out of that show with 10 people in it. You know, those are going to be your super fans. Those are going to be your acolytes. You know, they're the apostles that will be telling 10 friends of theirs, and those 10 friends tell 10 more. And that's how you build in each market and start to sell more tickets. You come back again and again, and you pour your heart out. You don't get shitty over small fees or poor turnout because you don't know when your super fan is going to be in the crowd, and that super fan is going to turn on their entire community to you.
Right.
So, you know, that's what you got to tell artists during the lean times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's tough. And a lot of people can't hack it. And even those who do struggle with money and mental health through a lot of it because it is tough. And it's a game of attrition. You just got to outlast everyone else and build up your fan base.
Yeah, I've always thought about it that way. It's kind of just like a staying game.
Yeah.
It's like if you can just stick around for long enough, maybe it'll happen. So what would your advice be if you like? I have a lot of people who always message me being like, "How do I get started with like playing shows? How do I get on like an agency? How do I get management? When do I need a management?"
You're putting the
team?
cart before the horse.
That's what I always think too. It's like, yeah, you should already be playing shows and you should already be almost fairly established with shows before you even think about an agent or manager.
Absolutely. You need to be cranking out music that people are absolutely losing their shit over. And if you're just putting your music up on SoundCloud because you think it sounds good, if you really, really listen to it a bunch and think, am I at the level of the people that I am trying to emulate or the scene I want to be in? If you really think that your music's at that level, go for it. But if you're really starting out, don't put garbage up on SoundCloud and then try and push to get an agent off of that or get shows off of it. Make sure that you're putting your absolute best shit on SoundCloud because there's a billion people doing it. And if somebody hears one track of yours once and it's mediocre, they're going to remember that or they'll forget you completely. But, you know, they might remember you as being mediocre even if your tracks are getting better. Like, make sure you're absolutely putting your best shit out there and people will find it and they will crawl over broken glass to get you to come play.
That's
in
what
their
I always
hometown.
think too. It's kind of like if you're making shit that's good enough, people will fucking go so far out of their way to hear it. It's kind of like
Absolutely.
when Alan Moore came on the scene not that many years ago. His album or his production in general and his music in general is just so fucking good that everyone was like going out of their way to hear it. Even people like Kill the Noise and shit was like posting about it and stuff like that.
Exactly. People will find it if you are really, really good. And so you're not going to be like, oh, I need to find an agent. You're going to be inundated with so many show requests that you're going to reach out to people. And agents, you know, have a limited amount of time and they need some sort of momentum. Agents can't just get you shows. You have to have some natural momentum in order to be able to help them do their job. Mm-hmm. And so if you are absolutely inundated with shows, people will notice that. Agents are very good about seeing where the buzz is and who is kind of exciting all the other producers and artists and stuff. We are on SoundCloud as much as DJs are looking for the next big thing.
Well, also, yeah, it's kind of like if you do have that buzz around you, it kind of makes the agent's job easier, but also it's like they look at you as like, you know, a potential investment for their time, right? Because like if they invest, you know, 10 hours a week into you or something like that, maybe in a few years that would, if you're getting, some solid set fees. Then,
I'm in the gambling business.
Right. That's
I
pretty much
gamble
what
with
it is.
everything,
Exactly,
and so like a client could take some initial investment on our part, and the amount of money we're making on commissions is far exceeded by the amount of admin costs of actually going through and contracting and advancing and doing all that stuff. It's a gamble that this artist will pop, and if you are a good agent or a good manager, you are creating this loyalty between you and your client. And the worst thing in the world is building someone up and then they go off to a bigger agency or a bigger management firm. And it happens to the best agents and best managers. It's just the nature of the game. But developing that relationship with an artist really comes from there being something special about you. So if you are looking for an agent or looking for a manager, there better be something damn special about you. And if there's not yet, you can go harder. You can make better music. You can capture people's imagination, and they will come to you. The agents and the managers will come to you.
Yeah, my answer to people who generally ask this question is pretty similar. I'm like, just put more effort in. Like at this point, you should just be like really enjoying the fact that you can be at home working on music constantly, and you should just like
Absolutely.
be hammering it. And because one of the side effects of getting really good at Ableton is spending less time on Ableton.
Yep.
And I think there was a tweet about this.
Yeah.
At one point, somebody was like, one of the side effects or one of the hidden features in Ableton when you get really good at it is waking up in airports hungover all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great tweet. And it's absolutely true. And yeah, enjoy that time that you're able to be at home, stack those tracks, like get really good at DJing. The first time people see you, they should be blown away and want to tell everyone they know about you.
Yeah. That's kind of where I fucked up too, is I started doing shows before I was good at DJing. And I really shouldn't have. I really should have like gotten better at DJing before I started playing out as much as I did. Because I did a fucking lot of shows in 2012, 2013, even 2014. Like I really don't think I got really good at DJing until like maybe really late 2017. And I was doing tons of shows up until then. I mean, we did that giant show with Hutch and stuff in 2016.
You weren't DJing at that point. You were basically like
it was like
band.
a live set. Yeah. That was kind of different.
That was nuts. It was great and very cool. And, someday maybe you'll do it in a different way.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a matter of like getting paid enough and like having enough want or need to do that. But I'm really happy at this time treating DJing kind of like stand-up comedy.
Absolutely.
It's literally just like I'll like work on bits.
Yes.
And then I'll just throw all these bits into my set. And then like, every day I almost have a new set now, which is like I played in Minneapolis last night and tonight the set's going to be different. With the live set, that's not possible.
And you are actually making jokes with your music at the same time too. Like you have a very irreverent sense of humor. And so like you will do things that are actually funny. Like you want to elicit a response from the crowd, not just dancing or banging their heads, but like you will sometimes do things that are very funny. And
like playing that blocked edit.
Yes, exactly. Shouts to Supercilious on that one.
Yeah.
He's at Le Spectacle tonight.
Oh yeah, he's doing a live show, right?
Yeah, his life band.
Bunch
of fucking Tool nerds.
Yeah. Where's that at?
Rhode Island.
Oh,
with the Reliquarium crew, I want to say.
Crazy. In Providence?
I think so. Rhode Island is probably just one city large, right? Like I don't know anything about my New England geography, but I think Rhode Island is such a small state that it's basically Providence, and if you're not in Providence, you're in Connecticut.
Right. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Of course.
That's like
I don't think we talked about anything of use more than 10% of the time, but hopefully in that 10% there was something
It'll be fine.
useful.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But we only get to talk about business, so this was fun to be able to talk about
bowling and shit.
And climate change.
Yeah, fuck yeah. All right, cheers, man.
Thank you for listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Mr. Bill Podcast.
Podcast.